So Peter, I was thinking, I was just asked, I was on a call, and they asked me to give, successes and failures as it relates to being in ministry, right, and planting a church. And I'd never really thought of the failures, right? I kind of just moved past them, like, okay, that one didn't work, let's just move on. But I think there's so much to learn in those things, right? But this one that I particularly was, so we'd just gotten started here, right? And I was introduced to this guy who does breakdance ministry, which is, he would go down to Inglewood in Chicago, and he was teaching breakdance hip hop to these young men and discipling them in Jesus while dancing with them. And expanded to Elgin, and then he's got a location in Houston, another one in California, and another one out in England, I think it was, or something. I can't remember. Anyway, so when I'm with him, I get all in, you know me, I get excited over this ministry, and I'm thinking, this is so cool, we should do this here at the center, and I'm thinking, oh, kids of the neighborhood would flock here, and I got this big grandiose dream. So we started. First day he brings a guy in from Inglewood on the train, comes here to teach this class, 2 kids show up. The next week he brings the guy and his girlfriend here to teach the class, and nobody shows up. And you just sit there and you go, oh, the pain of that. And then the lesson in that, right? The pain was, I asked somebody to do a ministry that the community contextually wasn't asking for. There was one lesson. The second lesson is I took somebody's time because I got so excited about it. And then the third is just the pain of ministry. In the middle of that is I had to admit, again, that sometimes I run out in front of God, right? And that there is pain in ministry, I guess is where I'm going with this. That sometimes, we don't talk about that. We only talk about the highs, the mountaintops, the amazing things we do. And we don't actually talk about this sense of failure, or what we call failure in our economy, not in God's economy, but more in ours, and the learning lessons that come from that. I'd like to talk a little. So, tell me a little bit more about pain in ministry.
When you get on the field, you have to know that it's going to be painful. That's ministry. That's part of. And you said something very interesting as you start off on this journey of breakdance, and you were all excited, but you said you learned. Ministry is all about learning, not about mistakes. People focus on the mistakes, and they sit down. You and I know that we have people that just because a small mistake, they feel like the whole world has been brought down by them.
Right.
And God is so angry with them. They don't fit in the ministry. Oh my goodness, how wrong they are. I remember the ministry when Jesus just began the ministry, and Peter jumps in and he says, you are the Messiah. And what a beautiful dialogue that is. Oh, you are the rock, man. You're the guy. And everybody's attention. The next thing, just a few verses down, get thee behind Satan. And can you imagine the slap that he got in front of everyone? The man just acknowledges, you're the Lord. The next thing that he comes to play the game of Jesus. Here's the thing. He wants to tell Jesus how to play the game. You're not.
Well, that's what we love about Peter, right? Peter's just this guy. Okay, I'm in the game. Put me in the game. I'm going to walk on the water. Put me in the game. Yeah.
And what a lesson to learn. We all learn that lesson. Jesus simply looks at him and says, he gives him this harsh rebuke, but tells him, you're not looking from eternal perspective.
Right.
You are looking from earthly perspective. So, Bob, ministry, we have to know that we will fail, fall, and learn. And I think the 3 things that I was thinking about to sharing, ministry is all about learning. You start learning. And if you don't, you think you come and you want to be on the top of everyone wants to be that success. Especially in the Western culture, we're all so conscious about success. I don't know where we get this idea from, we want to be successful. Nobody should oppose us. We will never fall. I'm going to be the number one. But I want to tell you, ministry starts from the ground where you feel like you're nothing, you're a failure. And when you begin to learn that lesson, it's a learning. Yeah. If you take ministry as learning, Bob, it becomes easy for us to function. And I think most people don't take ministry. They think I get in and I'll take this church as a pastor, or I'll take this ministry as a thing, and I'm going to make it successful. Well, nothing wrong with that broad idea of success. You know, success is measured by each one in a different way. But I think the Lord is looking for faithfulness. Did you come to play this game faithfully?
Well, and I just, you are so right. Do you think it's part of the, I love the term Christian industrial complex, right? This is the idea that faith has moved into this kind of reproducing American Western thought that you've got to homogenize it, set the boundaries. And so what we're talking about is bigger is better, more people, more widgets. As long as you can turn it out and do it effectively, boy, we're all looking for success as it relates to numbers. But God's not looking, that's not God's economy. God's economy is I'm looking for impact. And how are you changing the places where you live, work, and play? I mean, I put a quote out recently about artisans, right? The artisan understanding is you start with anything, bread, chocolate, beer, doesn't matter what, and you craft it and you love it and you're in it. And it doesn't matter if you sell 50,000 bottles of beer or make 10 million loaves of bread. It's about the quality and the taste and the process of doing it. And it's more about the enjoyment of that. And I think we need to relook at ministry in those terms, don't you think? I mean,
you're absolutely right. When you are saying about this, and I'm thinking about so many ministries focus on numbers.
right.
Just numbers. Nothing wrong with numbers. I like numbers. We like to see numbers. The Bible talks about numbers. But then ultimately Jesus gave focus to those 12 people and the 70, the next bunch. But I want to just remind all of us that he had those 3 guys in the midst of the 12. He had another 3 guys who said, I'm investing a lot in you.
Right.
I have no plan B. You're the guys that are going to take this message to the world. Bob, I think we shifted our focus from people. I'm a numbers guy. I like numbers, and I've done a lot of numbers. I'm realizing, okay, that's good. You feel good about the numbers, but at the end of the day, who's staying with you? Who's walking with you? Who are the people that you have invested that can say, I've learned and I've done this? So ministry is about learning. Number one thing that I'm thinking is ministry is all about learning. And I think that's the word disciple means. I looked up the word disciple. It says a learner. The first thing, the disciple in the Greek word that it says is a learner. Learning. And I think we cause some kind of a distance to people or fear when we say, would you come and join our ministry? Mm-hmm. I mean, would you come to join this high rank? Would you come and do this for God? I mean, everybody's scared when you use the word like saying, you really serve God?
Right.
I mean, wait a minute. I'm not, the first thing, Bob, I hear the Eastern mindsets always says, I'm not qualified. That's the first thing.
Right.
Remember Moses? What did he say?
Yeah, I can't speak. I can't.
Moses right away. I'm just thinking, here's a guy who sees this bush that is burning, but the bush is not burning. He sees the flame, he hears the voice, he knows it's God's, and he takes off the sandal, he has a dialogue, and yet he has the nerve to say, I'm not qualified. Don't you love it?
Right.
I mean, this is exactly what people, most of the time when they feel it's a ministry, and what was God telling him? He was telling Moses, I want you to come. I've heard people cry. Bob, there are people that are crying, and God is hearing their cry. He says, I heard them. I heard them. I saw them. This is what in Exodus 3 he says, I heard them, I saw them, and now I'm sending you to them. Bob, I think ministry is all about people. We hear the cry, but we walk away. The sad thing in the Western Hemisphere, we don't have time for these things. We give it to professionals.
Right.
And God says, I want you. I'm not qualified. And God says, who made your mouth? I can find qualifications. When you say you're not qualified, I always say, then you're qualified, because you're coming to before God and saying, I'm nothing.
Isn't it so amazing when you stand back and just think of the history of the church, right? And even from the disciples, right? They're fishermen, they're young boys, they're not educated, or they would have been in a rabbi's trained somewhere else. And here's Jesus going, nah, I'm picking you. You smelly kid, come on over here, right? You tax collector, come on over here. I want to have a conversation with you. And it is so amazing that we fail to see that he chooses, it's that old phrase, right? He doesn't choose the qualified, he chooses those who are available, right? And we know that. But somewhere along the line, we then think we have to take ownership of it, or we have to have all this training. First time I'm sure you've had this, the pain of taking the time to train someone up to do something, even if it's just slightly. You're just helping them with their gifts, reorienting them to what God has for them, follow God in this way, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, I need more training. Mm-hmm. For what? Who's in charge? Mm-hmm. And I'm not that against training, right? There's nothing against education,
yes,
but you almost have to unlearn
to
learn to be a disciple. Yes. And unlearn means, I have to have faith that what the pastor told me actually works, right? That and to follow in the footsteps. Like I'm sure your gentlemen and ladies, that you've poured into over the years, right? They have to recognize, you know what, when you tell me you can't feed your family, or is this going to be a burden, you have to think at some point, I left it all. I left it all. And yes, it is a burden. But you get to play. And I think that's the other piece. We have this joy, right? This phone call was so much fun today because I have joy of thinking all of the things that we did during COVID, right? All the crazy, insane stuff we did. But yet, I also think of the stories, right? Of somebody's face and the smiling. And sometimes it's not the other person that we're serving, it's the people that we've taught to serve, right? And they get that pleasure, and then we wonder why they don't keep wanting to repeat, like rinse and repeat. This is discipleship. Rinse and repeat. But keep rinsing, keep going, keep shampooing, keep taking the time. I don't know.
That's learning. That's what I'm saying. Learning. That's what you were saying. Training is learning. But most people think to become a disciple, you have to have some certification to be that qualified. I finished this book. I finished 3 books. I'm thankful for the books, and I think it helps you a lot if you understand the books. But I think the game begins when you step in and start learning. You don't read books so that you can master the books and then you step in. I think Jesus, that's when he walked around, like you said, he's, I like that, there was smelling fishermen, and he says, come follow me. Here was Matthew sitting with all the money that he was counting, and everybody was probably angry at Matthew because we know that tax collecting was not a good profession.
Right.
People were against, and in the midst of that, he says, come follow me. And here is the thing. Learning starts when you step out and start doing it. Whatever it is. Books are good. I'm not against it. Certification is good. I'm not against it. But step out. Learning begins when you step out and start doing it. So what I 3 things that I come to my mind is learning. Then you're working, in a sense, whatever you're doing, it becomes kind of a passion for you, your work maybe. And that's how you take it. And then you're growing. But these 3 are interlinked with one another. I've seen people who mastered the books but never got out of the chair. Never got out of the chair. They can talk about all the principles but never got out of the chair. Don't tell me how to swim when you didn't even take a dip in the water.
I'll never forget, I had a boss who once said to me, he said, don't fly your desk. And I went, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, you've had all this education. I've now taught you how to sell things. Don't sit behind your desk and wait for the phone to ring, right? That's the salesman says. But in the same way, it's ministry, right? Don't get all the training and then just sit in the building or sit in the Sunday service or sit at home thinking that somehow now, okay, I'm ready when someone calls. You're never going to be fully ready. It's never complete until you start playing the game.
Exactly. Learning, working, and growing. This is what our passion is, to see the people to get off wherever they are, whatever they're doing, come and start playing the game. This is when I say that as we are talking today, we're saying, come on the field. Jesus calls you to come on the field. Isn't it wonderful? I mean, if you really take this analogy to the world today, none of us would be qualified to play any game. Maybe your age strikes you, your height strikes you, your weight strikes you, but here is God who
Hey, you
says,
hit 3 out of my 4.
oh my goodness. I'm thinking about Moses, by the way.
I know.
Behind the scene. Here's a man who's past his age, past everything. The man who had a tag on him as a murderer. The man was a fugitive. In today's world, he'll be rejected, number one.
Right.
But God looks at him and he says, I'm not done with you yet. Oh, just leave me alone. I got a few more years. I want to just come to you straight. No, I got the greatest thing for you, even at this age. That's where I was going. Don't never feel that when you get to play the game with the Lord, it's not about age, it's not about what you don't have, it's about you. And Moses, what does he have? I mean, this is a classic thing, right? He calls Moses, what do you have, Moses? I can't do this, and I can't go. You think I can go to the Pharaoh? Can you imagine? The guy who ran from the very place, he's sending him back to the place and saying, you're going to talk to the king. You're going to talk to the king. And Moses says, I'm not qualified. I know you're not qualified. But when I call you, you're qualified. When I call your name, you're qualified. I'm going to send you. One of the best historical lessons is that he turns this story, and now the world knows the story of the greatest leader. One of the greatest leaders was Moses, at the age where no one would say you're qualified. Our culture looks for the age and says, Social Security, you're out.
Right. Yeah, take your paycheck and go retire. But where is that in the Bible? It's not, right?
It's not. So,
you made me remember a point, though, that I think we need to make sure we tell people, right? One of those, again, it goes back to the characteristics that we talked about, is that humility, right? I never forget that no matter, Moses is doing well now. Everybody's kind of following him. He's got everybody ordered. He's kind of moving things forward. And then his father-in-law comes to him, as he's kind of sitting as judge and jury of all the tribes, and he says, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. You got to get other people in here because you shouldn't be doing all this.
Yeah.
And I think that humility to recognize, right?
Yes.
We don't know it all.
Yes.
And to take instruction from those around us. I think that's why our friendship works so well, is that both of us know we love each other, we want the best for each other's ministries, and yet we're okay with taking correction, and I think in ministry, especially when people say, I want to play the game, well great, play the game, but also make sure you got somebody around you to learn from, but also then to provide a little correction, sometimes a little shove, a little moment where they go, yeah, that's not good. And I think that's really important, that when you go on ministry, and when you truly move into the mission, you're actually not alone. You've got Christ, we all know that, we've got the Holy Spirit with us, we're walking with that, but you also need other people in this moment, both to spur you on, but also to correct you, and sometimes to say, you might want to be a little more patient, or, I think that is so important for us to just remember that humility context of the learning issue. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's great, because you just brought us back to the same word, learning. Learning. Even at that great success of his journey. I mean, imagine all the things that God did through him. Can you imagine your ego? Can you imagine your ego, that you walked away from Pharaoh and God did miracles after miracles, and now you're everybody comes to you, Bob, everybody comes to you. They don't know any other name that can answer them but Moses. Can you imagine? What a power that is. And yet when his father-in-law sees that, he says, and he very gently says, you're going to die if you keep doing this. You're going to die sooner than your time. You got to divide this. And then that's exactly what you said. Two things, humility and learning. That's discipleship. I had an encounter, just a marvelous, I will share this because it's a powerful story. in one of my sessions, I had two incidents like that. In one of my sessions, as I was teaching, and there were a lot of Catholic nuns that were sitting in the class. They came for us to learn on leadership, so I did teach them. First day, second day, and usually during lunch, what I do as a resource leader, I like to sit with people and eat lunch with them to learn about them. So they may ask questions. So I kept doing that. I think after second day, one of the nuns kind of just nudged me and she said, "Did you know who you just talked to on that lunch table?" I said, "No." She named some ranks that the best that I can describe. She is like Mother Superior, Mother Superior. I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, she's the Mother Superior, Mother Superior. Everybody looks up to her." And I said, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "What else? Tell me something more about her." No, I'm beginning to get nervous. And then she said, "Oh, she had once or twice a visitation with the Pope, and you know how they're
Right.
It's not a small thing." And I said, "Are you really?" She said, "Yeah, she sits right there." And I walked up to her just before I began. I said, "This is not right," I said to her. And she just, I mean, she's dressed like everybody else. You know, nuns wear the same thing. You're just gonna, and she just said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Sister," I said, I can't teach anymore. I said, "You should be the one to teach." And I really meant it. I said, "You have so much of experience. You should be the one." You know what she said? She said, "No, brother." She said, "No, I want to learn. I came to learn." Bob, I came to learn? You reach the ranks of the ranks? And these are tough nuns. I mean, I don't know if you went into any convent schools or when they run the school, they're with all the rules and regulations. They're very tough people.
Yeah.
They have discipline. And the way she said it, "I came to learn." And I said, I can't do this. I really felt, then I learned a lesson. She said, leadership is lifelong learning experience. Bob, I never forget that. Since that day, I tell everyone, if you stop learning, here's what it is. If you stop learning, you almost stop working and almost stop growing. You come to a level, and if you say, "I know it all," you're kind of closing the chapter on your life. And I realized that yes, leadership means it's a lifelong learning. That's a disciple. Going back to the word disciple, it's the same word. What did I say? Disciple is a learner. It's a disciple. It's a pupil. Student.
Right.
I think, Bob, leaders should always keep in mind. And sometimes when you get to the rank, like Moses had the rank, when his father-in-law comes, any CEO would say, "You're telling me, look at all my shareholders, look at all my, look at all the, money they're making, look at the bonus that I got, look at, that's an ego that builds you up. You think you don't need anyone else to tell you anything."
Right.
And that's when the problem comes. And I think you got to get into the lives of the people as a leader, and I think to be with them, to learn with them, and also through them. There's nothing wrong with us when you reach to a place and you think you don't need to learn anymore. I've seen people that when you want just numbers, you use people, Bob. And you trample over anything to make these numbers. But if you want disciples, you pour into them with the few that you have and say, I want to leave a legacy.
Right.
Because really, ultimately, Jesus never asked, "How many numbers did you bring?"
Right.
He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Right.
And I think that's a disciple. That's a disciple. Disciple is a learner. Disciple is a worker. Disciple is a one that grows. We all want that, don't we?
Yeah.
Every leader wants to see. I want Jesus, the way that he discipled his team, and he said, "You guys will do more than I did." Can you imagine somebody saying that? That's my passion to say. When I'm traveling and teaching and training, I see people. I say, "Brother, I want you to do more than what I'm doing. You can do it." Because I know I came from nothing. Because no one knows you better than yourself. I know I'm nothing. Who am I? Nothing. It's his gift, it's his grace on our life. If I start to step into his zone, then I'm becoming danger to people. That's why Moses was able to say, "Okay, I'll take that advice. Then he breaks the groups, and that's what we are called to do: break people into smaller numbers, and then that becomes a number that pleases the Lord.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
That's a good word right there.
Is
Right
it
there.
for us?
Right.